Kanye West's most insane confessions that left the world speechless. Did he go too far? Welcome to Celeb TV. What happens when one of the most influential artists of our generation opens his mouth without a filter? Kanye West, now legally known as Ye, has never been one to shy away from controversy, but some of his statements have crossed lines that even his most loyal fans struggle to defend. From interrupting award shows to making claims that shook the entertainment industry to its core, Kanye West's most shocking statements have dominated headlines, sparked global debates, and left millions asking, what was he really thinking? Today, on January 16, 2026, we're diving deep into the most insane confessions and outrageous moments from Kanye West's career, moments that didn't just raise eyebrows but change the conversation entirely. These aren't just sound bites, they're cultural earthquakes that reveal the complex, controversial, and often misunderstood mind of one of music's biggest icons. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will shock you, challenge you, and make you question everything you thought you knew about Kanye West. But before we get into these jaw-dropping moments, if you're enjoying this deep dive into Kanye West's most controversial statements, do us a huge favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss our celebrity breakdowns, and drop a comment below telling us, do you think Kanye West went too far, or was he just being brutally honest? Your opinion matters, and we want to hear it. Now, let's get into the story. The moment that changed everything. George Bush doesn't care about black people. Let's rewind to September 2, 2005, a date that will forever be etched in television history and Kanye West's legacy. Hurricane Katrina had just devastated New Orleans, leaving thousands of predominantly black Americans stranded, suffering, and dying while waiting for federal assistance that seemed to never come. The images were heartbreaking. Families trapped on rooftops, the Superdome overflowing with desperate survivors, bodies floating in floodwaters. America was watching, and the response from the government felt painfully slow. During a live NBC telethon called, A Concert for Hurricane Relief, Kanye West was paired with comedian Mike Myers to read scripted pleas for donations. But Kanye had other plans. As Myers delivered his lines with practiced composure, Kanye deviated completely from the script, his voice shaking with emotion and raw frustration. "I hate the way they portray us in the media," Kanye began, his words tumbling out in a stream of consciousness that felt both chaotic and deeply genuine. "You see a black family, it says they're looting. You see a white family, it says they're looking for food." The camera cut to Myers, whose face registered pure shock and confusion. He had no idea what was happening. But Kanye wasn't done. After Myers awkwardly continued reading his assigned text, Kanye delivered the line that would define that moment and haunt the Bush administration. George Bush doesn't care about black people. The screen immediately cut away to Chris Tucker, and NBC later edited the statement out of the West Coast broadcast, but the damage, or the truth, depending on your perspective, was already out there. This wasn't a calculated publicity stunt. This was a raw, unfiltered expression of pain and anger that millions of black Americans were feeling but couldn't articulate on such a massive platform. The fallout was immediate and explosive. President George W. Bush later called it one of the most disgusting moments of his presidency. Conservative media outlets crucified Kanye West, calling him everything from unpatriotic to irresponsible. But, in black communities across America, Kanye became a hero, someone who had the courage to say what needed to be said when it needed to be said. The statement sparked a national conversation about race, class, government negligence, and media bias that continues to this day. Looking back on this moment on January 16, 2026, it's clear that this was the beginning of Kanye West's transformation from just a rapper and producer into a cultural provocateur who would never again stay silent about issues he felt passionate about, regardless of the consequences. This single statement set the template for every controversial Kanye West moment that would follow, spontaneous, emotionally charged, and absolutely impossible to ignore. The VMA interruption that broke the internet. Fast forward to September 13, 2009, the MTV Video Music Awards at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. Taylor Swift, then a rising country pop star, had just won the award for Best Female Video for her song, You Belong With Me, beating out Beyoncé's iconic, Single Ladies Put a Ring on It. As the 19-year-old Swift stood on stage, clutching her trophy and beginning her acceptance speech with genuine excitement and disbelief, Kanye West suddenly stormed the stage, grabbed the microphone from her hands, and declared to a stunned audience, "Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you, I'ma let you finish, but Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time." The crowd erupted in boos. Beyoncé's face showed pure shock and embarrassment. Taylor Swift stood frozen, her moment completely hijacked. Kanye handed back the microphone, shrugged, and walked off stage like he'd just done everyone a favor. The aftermath of this moment was unlike anything the entertainment industry had seen before. Kanye West became public enemy #1 overnight. President Barack Obama called him a jackass in an off-the-record comment that was leaked to the press. Celebrities lined up to condemn his actions. Taylor Swift became a sympathetic figure, and the incident launched her into superstardom in ways that the award itself never could have. But here's where the Kanye West story gets complicated. He wasn't entirely wrong about Beyoncé's video being legendary, but his method of expressing that opinion was catastrophically inappropriate. In the days following the incident, Kanye issued multiple apologies, appeared on Jay Leno's show looking genuinely remorseful, and even took a hiatus from music to reflect on his behavior. He called his mother, who had passed away 2 years earlier, his saint, and suggested that her absence had left him without the grounding influence he desperately needed. But the question remains, what was Kanye West really thinking in that moment? Some psychologists and cultural critics have suggested that Kanye suffers from a compulsion to speak his truth regardless of social context, a trait that can be seen as either brutally honest or socially destructive depending on your perspective. Others point to his self-described struggles with mental health, including his later diagnosis of bipolar disorder, as a potential factor in his impulsive behavior. Years later, Kanye would describe the incident differently, sometimes defending it as standing up for artistic excellence, other times acknowledging it as a mistake. The VMA interruption became a defining moment not just for Kanye West, but for celebrity culture itself. It showed how one unscripted moment could dominate news cycles, spawn countless memes, and permanently alter public perception. On January 16, 2026, this moment still serves as the gold standard for celebrity controversy, and it established Kanye West as someone who would always prioritize what he believed was right over what was socially acceptable. The Trump connection and the slavery statement that shocked everyone. If you thought Kanye West couldn't possibly be more controversial, 2018 proved everyone wrong. On May 1, 2018, during an interview with TMZ Live, Kanye West made a statement that would become one of the most criticized and misunderstood comments of his entire career. While discussing his support for then-President Donald Trump and wearing a red, "Make America Great Again" hat, Kanye said, "When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years. That sounds like a choice." The room fell silent. TMZ staffer Van Lathan immediately confronted Kanye, saying, "I actually don't think you're thinking anything." The clip went viral within minutes, and the backlash was swift and furious. How could someone descended from enslaved people suggest that slavery was a choice? The statement seemed to dismiss centuries of brutal oppression, family separation, rape, murder, and systemic dehumanization. Kanye later attempted to clarify his comments, suggesting he was talking about mental slavery, and the psychological chains that persist long after physical bondage ends, an idea influenced by Bob Marley's Redemption Song, and various Black empowerment philosophies. But the damage was done. Even his most devoted fans struggled to defend him. His friendship with Trump had already alienated much of his Black fanbase, and this statement felt like a complete betrayal of his community and his legacy. But here's what makes this Kanye West moment so complex. Buried beneath the terrible phrasing and poor delivery was arguably a point about the psychological impact of oppression and the importance of mental liberation. Scholars like Dr. Joy DeGruy have written extensively about post-traumatic slave syndrome, and how the trauma of slavery continues to affect Black Americans today. Kanye seemed to be grappling with these ideas, but his platform and his delivery turned a potentially interesting philosophical discussion into a public relations nightmare. The Trump connection itself deserves examination. Kanye's support for Donald Trump baffled almost everyone who knew his work. This was the same artist who had criticized George Bush, who had created albums deeply rooted in Black consciousness and struggle. What changed? Kanye himself offered various explanations. He admired Trump's dragon energy and outsider success. He believed Trump could be influenced toward criminal justice reform. He felt that Black Americans shouldn't be expected to automatically support Democrats. Some observers suggested that Kanye's contrarian nature simply compelled him to take the least popular position possible among his peers. Mental health professionals pointed to his behavior during this period as potentially consistent with a manic episode, the grandiosity, the impulsive decisions, the seemingly irrational statements. On January 16, 2026, looking back at this Kanye West era, it's clear that his Trump phase represented his most divisive period, costing him fans, friends, and business relationships, while also revealing the depth of his willingness to say exactly what he believed. Consequences be damned. The presidential run and the breakdown everyone saw coming. July 4, 2020. In the midst of a global pandemic and unprecedented social unrest following the murder of George Floyd, Kanye West tweeted that he was running for President of the United States under the "birthday party" banner. At first, many thought it was a joke or a publicity stunt for an upcoming album. But Kanye was serious, or at least as serious as someone can be when launching a presidential campaign via Twitter with no political infrastructure, no party support, and just months before the election. His first campaign rally in South Carolina on July 19, 2020, became one of the most troubling and heartbreaking Kanye West moments ever captured on camera. Wearing a bulletproof vest and with 2020 shaved into his hair, Kanye delivered a rambling, emotional speech that left the audience confused and concerned. He cried as he revealed that he and his then-wife Kim Kardashian had considered aborting their first child, North, saying, "I almost killed my daughter." The rally footage was difficult to watch. This wasn't Kanye being provocative or controversial, this was Kanye in distress, potentially experiencing a mental health crisis on a public stage. Kim Kardashian later released a statement asking for compassion and understanding, acknowledging Kanye's bipolar disorder and the challenges of supporting someone you love through mental health struggles. The presidential campaign continued in sporadic, chaotic fashion. Kanye appeared on some ballots but was removed from others due to filing issues. He spent millions of dollars of his own money but received fewer than 70,000 votes nationwide. Some political analysts suggested that his campaign was actually designed to siphon votes away from Joe Biden to help Donald Trump, though Kanye denied this. Throughout the campaign, his statements became increasingly erratic and concerning. He tweeted that Harriet Tubman never actually freed the slaves, and made various other historically questionable claims that further alienated his supporters and concerned his family. What was Kanye West really thinking during this period? The answer is complex and potentially heartbreaking. Those close to him have suggested that during manic episodes, Kanye experiences racing thoughts, grandiose ideas, and a reduced need for sleep, all symptoms consistent with bipolar disorder. In these states, running for president might genuinely seem not only possible but destined. The tragedy of the presidential run wasn't just political failure, it was watching someone clearly struggling with mental health issues being enabled by yes men, exploited by political operatives, and mocked by a public that didn't fully understand what they were witnessing. On January 16, 2026, the failed presidential campaign stands as a cautionary tale about celebrity, mental health, and the dangers of platforms without accountability. It showed that Kanye West's most shocking statements weren't always calculated provocations. Sometimes they were cries for help that went unheeded until it was too late to prevent the damage to his reputation, his relationships, and his legacy. The anti-Semitic remarks that cost him everything. October 2022 marked the beginning of the end for Kanye West as we knew him. After years of controversial statements that tested the limits of public tolerance, Kanye finally crossed a line that even his most loyal defenders couldn't rationalize. In a series of tweets, interviews, and public appearances, Kanye made explicitly anti-Semitic statements that resulted in immediate and devastating consequences. On October 8, 2022, he tweeted that he was going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, a statement that was both threatening and revealed his misunderstanding of the term, DEFCON. In interviews with Piers Morgan, Drink Champs, and others, Kanye doubled down, promoting conspiracy theories about Jewish control of media, banking, and the entertainment industry, age-old anti-Semitic tropes that have fueled discrimination and violence for centuries. What was Kanye West really thinking when he made these statements? The most generous interpretation is that he felt wronged by specific Jewish executives in the music and fashion industries and, in his anger and potential mental health crisis, generalized his grievances into hateful rhetoric. The less generous but perhaps more accurate interpretation is that Kanye had been exposed to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, found them compelling, and decided to use his massive platform to spread them. The consequences were swift and comprehensive. Adidas, which had partnered with Kanye on the wildly successful Yeezy shoe line worth billions of dollars, immediately terminated their relationship, costing Kanye his billionaire status overnight. Gap ended their partnership. Balenciaga cut ties. His talent agency CAA dropped him. His bank JP Morgan Chase closed his accounts. Major retailers like Foot Locker pulled Yeezy products from their shelves. His net worth, which Forbes had estimated at $2 billion, plummeted to approximately $400 million, still wealthy by any measure, but a stunning fall from grace. More importantly, Kanye lost something money couldn't buy: respect. Artists who had defended his previous controversies now publicly condemned him. Jewish organizations demanded accountability. Documentaries about his life were shelved. His children's private school asked his family to leave. The man who once proclaimed himself a genius and compared himself to Jesus, Walt Disney, and Steve Jobs was now unemployable in mainstream entertainment and fashion. In the aftermath, Kanye offered various non-apologies and justifications, but never seemed to fully grasp the magnitude of what he'd done or genuinely repent for the harm caused. Some observers noted that his statements followed a pattern of escalating controversy. Each previous scandal had eventually blown over, perhaps leading Kanye to believe he was untouchable. But anti-Semitism is different. It's not a matter of opinion or artistic expression, it's hate speech with a body count that includes millions of Holocaust victims and countless others throughout history. As we reflect on this on January 16, 2026, the Kanye West anti-Semitic controversy serves as the ultimate example of how even the most talented, influential celebrities can destroy their own legacies through unforgivable statements. It raises difficult questions about mental health versus accountability, free speech versus hate speech, and whether someone who has said such things can ever be truly redeemed. For many, this wasn't just Kanye going too far, it was Kanye revealing who he really was when the mask finally fell off completely. The unanswered question: genius, mental illness, or something darker? As we reach the end of this deep dive into Kanye West's most shocking statements, we're left with the question that has haunted his career and legacy: what was he really thinking? The answer is likely all of the above and none of the above simultaneously. Kanye West is undeniably a musical genius. His production work revolutionized hip-hop, his albums have influenced countless artists, and his creativity is unquestionable. But genius doesn't excuse harm. Kanye has been open about his bipolar disorder diagnosis, and many of his most controversial statements occurred during what appeared to be manic episodes characterized by reduced impulse control, grandiose thinking, and poor judgment. But mental illness doesn't excuse anti-Semitism or other forms of bigotry. Millions of people manage mental health conditions without promoting hate. There's also the possibility that years of fame, wealth, and being surrounded by people who never said no created a person who genuinely believed he was above consequences, that his talent granted him immunity from the normal rules of decent behavior. Perhaps most troubling is the pattern we see across all these Kanye West moments: a man who repeatedly mistakes provocation for profundity, who confuses controversy with courage, and who seems unable or unwilling to distinguish between speaking truth to power and simply being hurtful for attention. The George Bush statement had merit and spoke for the voiceless. The Taylor Swift interruption was rude but ultimately trivial. The slavery comments were poorly articulated but possibly contained a kernel of psychological truth. The Trump support and presidential run seemed like cries for help wrapped in delusion. But the anti-Semitic remarks, those weren't complicated or misunderstood, those were just hate, plain and simple. On January 16, 2026, as we look at the wreckage of Kanye West's reputation and career, we see a cautionary tale about unchecked ego, untreated mental illness, and the dangers of platforms without accountability. We also see a tragedy: a brilliant artist who had everything and threw it all away because he couldn't or wouldn't control what came out of his mouth. The most shocking thing about Kanye West's most shocking statements might be this: we keep being shocked. After everything we've seen, after every controversy and apology and return to controversy, we somehow remain surprised when he does it again. Perhaps that says as much about us as it does about him. We want to believe that talent redeems, that creativity excuses, that genius operates on a different moral plane. Kanye West's career has proven, definitively, that none of those things are true. You can be brilliant and wrong. You can be creative and cruel. You can be influential and destructive. As we close this report, the question isn't really what Kanye was thinking, it's what we're thinking when we continue to platform, defend, or enable people who repeatedly show us exactly who they are. The legacy of Kanye West will forever be complicated by these moments, these statements, these choices. He gave us groundbreaking music and cultural contributions that can't be erased, but he also gave us a masterclass in how to destroy everything you've built, one shocking statement at a time. So now we turn it to you. Do you think Kanye West's controversial statements were the result of mental health struggles, unchecked ego, genuine belief in what he was saying, or something else entirely? Can his artistic legacy be separated from his harmful statements, or are they now forever intertwined? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and we want to hear where you stand on this complicated, controversial, and ultimately tragic story.